What if I told you there was a piece of legislation that would defund all the Mexican, Islamic, and other drug cartels, defund all the local drug gangs, cripple the movement towards a centralized globalist government, and reclaim the liberties lost in the wake of 9/11? And what if I told you that this legislation would minimally add $27 billion in revenue to the U.S. economy without the imposition of any further taxation on the American people? And furthermore, what if I told you that this legislation could be implemented worldwide, yielding similar results throughout the planet? Wouldn't you be interested in learning more about it? Well then, please take your seat and watch this entire video, because I'm going to describe what that legislation would look like, and I will also begin to map out a strategy that could implement this legislation before the end of 2009. Let me be absolutely clear why I am producing this series of videos. The primary purpose of this series of videos is to provide a global strategy to re-legalize marijuana worldwide in 2009. In the second video, I will be giving a thorough overview of the only true solution to ending the drug war, the MERP model. Since the first part of the series premiered on February 2nd, 2009, it has been viewed by over 2,000 people in 20 different countries. For those that can't read English, I provide transcripts of each video which can be viewed in any of 40 languages. I encourage you to distribute this link throughout the planet so that we can win our first battle against the globalists by implementing the MERP model of marijuana re-legalization worldwide before 2009 ends. It already appears that this is going viral across the internet, and the support for the MERP model has been overwhelming. In the first video, I made it clear that neither Obama nor Congress have any intention to re-legalize marijuana without concerted pressure from the American public. I then recommended 5 steps that groups and individuals could take to begin pressuring our representatives to specifically implement the MERP model of re-legalization. In this video, I'll give an overview of the MERP model. And what is the MERP model? Well, the MERP model is really a one-syllable contraction of the acronym MRPP, which is short for the Marijuana Re-Legalization Policy Project. For brevity, I will use MERP from this point forward. The MERP model for marijuana re-legalization is elegant in its simplicity and can be succinctly described as follows. The MERP model of marijuana re-legalization would minimally allow non-commercial cultivation up to 100 plants by adults above the age of 18 without any form of government taxation, regulation, or other interference. The MERP model is really not significantly different than the way we allow U.S. citizens to produce beer and wine within our homes. Home beer and wine production is neither taxed nor is it regulated. And many activists need to be weaned from this false notion that the government should get to tax everything. If they don't tax your tomatoes or your beer, why should they be allowed to tax your cannabis? But the MERP model does not preclude the issuance of licenses for commercial sale, and this is how it would work. In the United States, an ounce of high-quality marijuana sells for between $300 to $500 due to the risks that growers and distributors take to bring it to market. This is due to the fact that it's illegal. But it only costs about $20 an ounce to actually grow an ounce of marijuana using hydroponics and high-intensity discharge lamps. It's basically free if you grow it outside. So if you could buy commercially grown marijuana for $100 per ounce, many people would not bother to grow it. But if the price of commercially grown marijuana was over $200 an ounce, most people would probably decide to grow their own. By protecting the citizens' inalienable right to cultivate without taxation or regulation, the MERP model effectively self-regulates the market. None of the moneyed organizations such as MPP or DPA currently support the MERP model, as they tend to favor models that tax and regulate marijuana much like we regulate hard liquor. They continue to reject the MERP model by saying support is still well below 50%. But I no longer think this is actually true. 55% of Canadians support complete legalization in 2009, and 58% now exists in California. Harris and Zogby polls underreport because they are based on surveys through landlines. Since many younger Americans use cell phones, their support is underreported. And just like hard liquor, there would be a very good chance that they would not allow you to grow your own under their tax and regulate models for marijuana re-legalization. And if you were able to grow your own, government would probably insist on charging you a hefty annual license fee to allow you such a privilege under these tax and regulate models. It should be emphasized that the MERP model has intrinsic advantages over all tax and regulate models that are promoted by these muddied organizations, for it is only by completely taking the profit out of marijuana that we can effectively defund both drug gangs and drug cartels that now infiltrate 230 major cities throughout the United States, according to the Justice Department. The MERP model would also stimulate United States economy even if everybody decided to grow their own. According to a recent 60-minute show, Mexico, the War Next Door, Mexican drug cartels bring in over $38 billion a year in the U.S., which ends up in Mexico. In a recent CNN interview with General Terry Goddard stated that 60 to 70% of Mexican profits are derived from marijuana sales. But incredibly, both he and Anderson Cooper are against the re-legalization of marijuana. But let's take a moment to do the math. If 70% of the $38 billion in Mexican drug cartel profits originate from marijuana, then we are talking about $27 billion a year. So by implementing the MERP model, we could keep $27 billion in the United States, $260 billion over the next 10 years. That amounts to $250 billion in 10 years, which will remain in the United States economy, producing both jobs and badly needed tax revenue. And the best of all, it could be accomplished without raising another dime of taxation on the American people. And that is exactly what the MERP model would accomplish. The MERP model also serves as a gatekeeper drug. This is because consumers would no longer need to go to local dealers that often sell harder drugs such as methamphetamine, heroin, and cocaine. So it would serve a gatekeeper function by keeping consumers away from dealers who also sell these more dangerous drugs. This would lower the demand for heroin, whose main source is now Afghanistan, where Islamic terrorists use the profits to wage war against the non-Muslim world. So it is also quite possible the MERP model would help to defund Islamic terrorism throughout the planet. And since heroin is often injected through dirty syringes, one would also expect a reduction in HIV infections. And finally, the MERP model would serve as a counterbalance to the liberties lost with the passage of the Patriot Act and other unconstitutional executive orders. Because once marijuana is re-legalized, there would be no more excuses to do unreasonable searches and seizures of your home, your car, and your person. FISA surveillance of your phone calls might uncover your marijuana usage, but since it would be legal, they could do nothing with the information. Of course, there would be many other additional benefits that I don't have time to discuss right now. So what is it going to take to legalize marijuana under the MERP model? Well, there are two main things that need to be done in order to implement the MERP model in the United States. One, take marijuana completely off the Federal Controlled Substances Act of 1970, and two, withdraw from all United Nations drug treaties or minimally refuse to recognize any constraints concerning the cultivation, taxation, and consumption of marijuana. Other countries can take similar steps. For instance, Great Britain has a Controlled Substance Act almost identical to ours. The only difference is we have classes 1 through 5 and they have classes A through E. But the idea is the same. Get rid of all legal restraints against the cultivation, taxation, and consumption of marijuana. If the U.S. Congress can rob us blind in a week through the passage of the TARP stimulus plan on October 3, 2008, then they should easily be able to implement the MERP model in a matter of days. And if the global elite can continue to bail out the banksters that have literally destroyed the global economy, then they can give up the corrupt stream of narco dollars that are currently propping up their international banks. In a recent UN report, it was disclosed that only thing keeping international banks solvent has been the laundering and investment of illicit drug money. The global emperors have promulgated 71 years of marijuana prohibition, have been exposed as both criminals and liars, and the people of this planet are waking up. The war on marijuana must be brought to a quick and decisive end through the full global implementation of the MERP model. This ends my brief discussion of the MERP model and how it would work in the real world. If you favor the MERP model, I highly encourage you to visit the following link often and see how things are developing and get involved. I also ask that you send this link to as many people as possible, include links to this graphic on your websites and social networking web pages. Above all else, call your representatives weekly and tell them if the MERP model is not passed by next November's election, you're going to vote for someone else. Let the pressure build, let the drug war hit the floor. Open the doors for the beginning of a peaceful, prosperous new age that values the inalienable rights of every human on planet Earth. Re-legalize marijuana as soon as humanly possible. Thank you very much. This is Bruce Kane, editor of New Age Citizen.